Let's head now to our final story, and let's begin that by reading a passage written by the French writer Victor Hugo. He wrote this: "People spoke of the Parthenon in Greece, the pyramids in Egypt, the Colosseum in Rome, Notre Dame in Paris, and the Summer Palace in the Orient. If people did not see it, they imagined it. It was a kind of tremendous, unknown masterpiece, glimpsed from the distance in a kind of twilight, like a silhouette of the civilization of Asia on the horizon of the civilization of Europe." Those words, as we said, written by Victor Hugo, and he wrote those words to describe the old Summer Palace in Beijing. But the garden was looted and burnt down some 150 years ago. A group of Chinese experts has gone now overseas, and their mission is to find the treasures that once belonged to this legendary palace.
There was, in a corner of the world, a wonder of the world. This wonder was called the Old Summer Palace. In the northwest suburbs of Beijing are the ruins of this garden of gardens. They tell the story of a miracle in Oriental art and a tragedy for humankind. October 18th marked the 149th anniversary of the destruction of the garden. A special operation named the Search for Old Summer Palace Relics Lost Overseas was launched. Historians and experts were set to travel abroad in the hope of confirming the number and the status of these relics.
The aim of the mission is simply to work out what had been taken from the palace, in order to get the foreign collections to give back the items.
Chen says they don't really know how many relics were plundered since the catalog was burned. Rough estimates put the number at 1.5 million. Most are displayed in museums, including the British Museum, the French National Library, and America's Metropolitan Museum of Art. But what happened to the Old Summer Palace? Built in the 18th and 19th centuries, the Old Summer Palace was a combination of European-style gardens and Chinese-style palaces. It covered an area 8 times the size of Vatican City. Its extensive collection of masterpieces of art and antiquities made the Old Summer Palace a veritable museum. But in 1860, during the Second Opium War, Anglo-French Allied forces destroyed the old imperial gardens. 2 robbers breaking into a museum, devastating, looting and burning, leaving laughing hand in hand with their bags full of treasures. One of the robbers is called France and the other Britain. French writer Victor Hugo described it in a letter. The fire lasted for at least 3 days, leaving the world wonder in ruins. In the following 150 years, China has never stopped searching for the relics. But bringing them home is difficult. In February this year, 2 bronze statues went on the auction block in Paris. The heads of a rat and a rabbit sold for a total of $36 million by telephone bids. The statues were 2 of 12 animal sculptures representing the Chinese zodiac that once made up an elaborate fountain at the palace. The auction drew much controversy, as China said it was against international protocols. A team of Chinese lawyers went to court to stop the auction, but failed.
Even though I don't represent the Chinese government, I want everyone to know that these historic objects were stolen from China. It is a humiliation that they stole them. Even though we lost the case, it is a victory in some sense because now everyone knows what has happened.
But many Chinese students did not give up. Outside the auction house, they were busy handing out brochures.
I found that many French friends know little about Opium War and the burning of the Old Summer Palace, so we made these brochures. I believe French people who know the history and have a conscience will oppose the auction.
China is not the only country having trouble recovering its national treasures. Egypt, which boasts a rich ancient civilization, faces similar problems. The Great Sphinx at Giza is one of the great symbols of ancient Egypt. Many know the answer to the Sphinx's old riddle is man. But what about its new question? Where is my beard? The 4,600-year-old monument originally had a stone pharaonic beard, which buttressed its somewhat unstable head. But in the early 19th century, when Western powers began to take away Egypt's historical relics, the beard was carted away to the British Museum. In fact, many leading museums in the Western world have Egyptian antiquities. Demands for their return continue to this day. And most recently, Egypt's head of antiquities took the campaign to a new level.
And to show to the world that the Louvre bought stolen painting, and they know that's stolen, this is bad. And this is why we had to make this decision to suspend and stop the work of the Louvre in Egypt. The Egyptian monuments are very important. It doesn't belong to Egypt only, but belongs to people all over the world.
The spat with the Louvre started 8 months ago, when the Paris Museum refused to return painted wall fragments of a 3,200-year-old tomb. Hawass hit back by suspending the Louvre's archaeological missions in Egypt. The Louvre then reversed its decision. Since taking office in 2002, Hawass has dedicated himself to searching for the relics. To date, some 5,500 items have returned home. But compared with the total treasures China and Egypt have lost, the number of the returned items is very small. But they're not forgotten. At the stop near the Summer Palace on Beijing's newly opened subway line, walls display a relief of the garden.
I used a relief to show the time and space. You can touch and feel the history. I want to make it like a stamp, imprinting the history into the heart of every passenger.
For organizations or individuals now holding the relics, the pleas for their return might bring the chance for a good bargain. But for countries that have lost their treasures, the calls signal mixed feelings of grief and anger, hope and despair. It's not just a matter of national pride, but justice.
So what can we say in summary? Well, no one objects to those who buy legal artworks in good faith, but the question is whether one can be acting in good faith when one purchases looted artwork. It's hard to imagine a serious collector who's not aware of the contentious nature of his or her purchase. Back in 1978, UNESCO published a document. It was called A Plea for the Return of an Irreplaceable Cultural Heritage to Those Who Created It. It says that individuals who are victims of this plunder, sometimes for hundreds of years, have the right to recover these cultural assets which are part of their national belongings. Well, that statement was written 30 years ago, but the process, of course, remains very slow. With that, we come to the end of this program, of course, and write us an email and tell us what you think about that story or any of the others you've been watching over the past 30 minutes. Our email address, though, is worldinsight@cctv.com. We look forward